Be polite, keep your phones off, and stay seated during the duration of our speaker. Now please help me enthusiastically welcome our speaker tonight, Cindy.
Yeah, behave. My name's Cindy. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 6th, 2006. Last year I celebrated 17 years by the grace of God. And by the grace of God, I'm still alive, and I'm here. And I think what's, again, kind of miraculous tonight for me, there are a handful of people here in this room tonight who were there when I first walked into these rooms here in Prescott. Some of you may have known my friend Joan Crosby, who lives up in Oregon. She invited me to this party. And she said, I go to these meetings, you might want to come. Yeah. Saved my life. Absolutely saved my life. Once upon a time, I grew up in a family of 5 kids. Mom and dad, middle class, good stuff. My parents had cocktails every night, 365 days a year. They stopped at 2, usually. Pretty much everybody in my family has cocktails every night, except me. I had no idea, none, no idea about alcoholism, not a clue. And it's funny because I kind of was surveying my life this morning. Wow. And thinking back to even when I was 7 or 8 years old, I was already lying and stealing. How could that possibly be? I mean, again, I look at how my parents raised us. I have no idea where these thoughts came from. But I used to steal the change. My dad would empty his pockets at the end of the night, and he would set them on a low-lying table. I don't know where I got the idea to take the change. I did get caught. My mom made an announcement one year saying, we're not going to be able to go on vacation because somebody's been stealing Dad's change. I fell for that. Later, I had a big resentment against my mom. She lied. We could have gone on vacation. But, yeah. I remember about when I was 8 years old, I was with some kids in the neighborhood throwing eggs at cars. I didn't throw any eggs. But when the military police came around and interviewed us kids, and they got to me, I said, oh, I know who it was. I was up in my bedroom, and I could see across a parade field. I can tell you which kids were doing it. Yeah, where does that come from? You know, again, this idea that I can't possibly get in trouble, scared to death. And that's actually, you know, probably the driving force of my life. 100 forms of fear. Growing up in a very dogmatic military family, you do what you're told. You never question authority. Never cry. Just go to school, get good grades, be a good kid, come home at 5 o'clock. Because back in those days, my parents would just send us kids out after school into the, neighborhood. Just be back by the time Taps plays at 5. And again, it's just, the crazy stuff. I remember the first time I really believed that God answered a prayer of mine We were living in Hawaii, and their fireworks are legal. And 4th of July came around, and my brothers would always take their fireworks and blow up things they had built during the year. And me and my other friends, we would go and we would break apart the fireworks and make a pile of gunpowder. And then we would take all the fuses and we would line them up, and then somebody like me would light a match. And unfortunately, this one time, there was a break in the lining up of the fuses, and so the fuse stopped, and I thought, oh, well, I got to fix that. So I lit another match, and I went, and I still have a scar on my finger, but I remember, again, this idea, I can't possibly get in trouble. I can't possibly let anybody know that I've been hurt. So I sat at the dinner table and ate, because the pain was on my right hand. I ate with my left hand, and I held my right hand underneath, and I just prayed, and I said, please. And again, it's a family of 5 kids and 2 parents. They're not paying attention to whether I'm eating with my right hand or my left hand. But I remember praying that night, please, dear God, take the pain away so that nobody ever knows. So you guys know, but my parents never knew. That's just the way that I lived, in this idea that I just have to get it right. I just have to do it right. I can't get in trouble. I watched my sisters and brothers get in trouble, and I'm like, I can't do that. I can't. And so and all of my cousins were older than me. And it just seemed to me that everybody in my family was successful. So I have to be successful. I got a scholarship, a full-ride scholarship to school. I was going to go be an engineer because I wanted to be a writer. That's kind of a hobby, right? So go be an engineer. Okay, I'll go be an engineer. And then I found alcohol. And I had gone away to school, and the minute I started drinking, that was it for me. It's all I wanted to do. It's all I wanted to do. I still, once in a while, talk to my first college roommate, and she did just fine. She became an engineer. I used to get the little yellow notices that were like, you're not doing well. And then I finally, after I opened the first one, I just stopped opening those. And I took the same approach later when I would get certified mail. Just don't go get it. Don't go get it. It's not good news. It's not the prize patrol, right? Avoidance became my deal. I had to go back home after I flunked out of school. I went back to school back home, and my mom said, go get a job. So I said, okay, I'll go get a job. I went and got a job. But I hung out with the people who drank, of course. And I got on the bowling team. And you know what that means. You bowl, you drink. So that's what my life was like. I did well at work. I got promoted. And then when I started making a little bit of money, and then it came time to file my tax return, and they said even though I claimed 0, I still owed money. What does my alcoholic brain say? Screw you. If you can't take enough out of my paycheck to satisfy yourself, I'm not going to file, I'm not going to pay. And I did that for a fair number of years. Because I'm a daily drinker. I go to work, I do a good job, I come home, and I drink. It's what I do. That's how I lived my life. And I did go to church. I did have a relationship with this entity called God. And I felt like I had a good relationship. And again, for me though, back then, God was something to get to know about. God was something to learn about. Religion was school. And I did a lot of that. Did a lot of religious education. Felt good about that. And looking back, I still feel pretty good about that. God was there. God was there. So I was managing departments in this store that I was working in, and I thought I was doing really good, but I was getting kind of tired of it. And so I saw this ad in the paper. It said, Travel Shop USA. I said, ooh, that sounds fun. So I became a security shopper for JCPenney. And we traveled in a station wagon around the country, and we went from pennies to pennies to pennies. There were 3 of us young women all around age 21, 22, 23, and then a couple that were older who drove us around. We got paid cash every week, and you can bet what we did with that. We went and drank. Usually, one of us was allowed to take an advance on our next paycheck, and so we would spend all our money, and then we would take turns getting an advance for the next week, and then we would live on that. That was my life. It was all about drinking, all about just, I don't know. I mean, I look back and I go, ooh, how did that happen? I still really don't understand. It's a God thing. I did manage to, when I came back, I did that job for about a year, and then came back home and managed to get a DUI. But back then, all I had to do was go to take some classes, pay a fine. Unfortunately, I think it was about then, when I went to buy a new car, I failed to get car insurance. Oops. But again, we're talking about not a lot of brain cells going on up here, other than, and you might be asking, where were your parents? I don't know, because I moved out. I would show up to family events, and again, I had this remembrance the other day that's who I was. I lived away, I worked, I drank, and then I would show up for family events. Hey, everybody, how are you? Do the tap dance. Everything was okay. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, life's good. Make everything look okay. What happened? When I was 33, I woke up on my living room floor. I don't know that was very unusual, but for some reason that morning, I said, wow, if I don't do something different, I'm going to die. And I just knew that. And I said, God, help me. I knew no one in recovery. I didn't know anything about recovery. I didn't know anything about alcoholism. I just knew I needed to change. I managed to find an AA meeting. It was a room about the size that, if any of you have been to Serenity at Sunrise, about that size of room, about that size of table. There was chairs around the table, and then there was another row of chairs around the outside. And I sat on the outside. And I just remember looking around the room terrified. People probably said hello to me, but I don't know. I went to the bookstore after that and got a copy of the Big Book. Found a page with the steps on it. Went, oh, I think I've done 1, 2, and 3. Because I already said, hey, God, I need your help. And then I looked further down and I went, oh, 9, made amends. I can write letters of apology. And that's what I did. I didn't go back to a meeting for 14 years. But I wrote letters of apology to my family and my friends. I said, I really believe I'm an alcoholic. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I've hurt you. I'm sorry for what I've done. Yeah. And for 2 years, every time I got the urge to drink, I would eat ice cream. And that worked for 2 years. I also had a miracle happen. This is another God shot for me that I will never forget. I had been working, that not paying taxes had kind of caught up with me. The state of California and the IRS were wanting to garnish my wages. And I had also been in a car accident, not drunk, but I had been in a car accident. And again, this idea that I didn't have car insurance, oops. I was being sued. So I had a friend at church who was a lawyer who helped me. And the IRS in the state of California, just in case you need to know, don't care that you're an alcoholic. Yeah. But my boss's boss came to me and said, I'd really like for you to come work for me. We manage these apartments, and I'd like for you to manage some apartments. You'll get an apartment, and you'll get a salary, and your utilities will be paid. And I was like, yeah, he gets it. I can live. The state and the IRS can gouge my salary. I'm sorry, not gouge. How did I say that? Just because they were taking 75% of it. But I had enough left over for ice cream. And the cool thing was, over the next year and a half, I was able to pay back over $14,000 in debt and fines and the lawsuit. Just in time for me to go to a sports bar, have a hamburger, and sit at the bar, and then decide that I can have a beer. Oops. I woke up in a blackout that night, went back into the blackout, woke up the next morning, told the guy that was there, you got to go, and said to myself, yeah, we can't do that. So I went from being a daily drinker back for many years, stopped for 2 years. Then I became just a binge drinker. Okay? Let things build up enough. Pew! Scare myself again. Say, okay, you can't drink. Let it build up. You know, because again, I don't have a program. I don't know about Alcoholics Anonymous except for that one meeting I went to, and I can't, that's too scary. So I just kept trying to do this stuff on my own. But I kind of got my stuff back together. I kind of would go some pretty long lengths of time without drinking. And then I got married. And I thought, oh, that's it. This is what I've been missing. This makes me normal. Because again, everybody in my family's married. Everybody drinks and everybody's married. This is it. I'm good. And I married a guy with money. Even better. Only problem is he didn't want me to work. Many of my friends thought that was a beautiful thing. Cindy, aren't you loving life? You don't have to work. And I'm like, yeah, not so much. I don't know. Because work had become a huge part of my identity. Now I'm just Mrs. Ed. Yeah. So it got to the point where we'd go someplace and people would say, so, Cindy, what do you do? And I'd say, nothing. It's a little edgy. But again, I had to make this work. I had to make this work. I had to make things look good. I had to be okay. I had to be okay. God had given me this. I had to be okay. I was not okay. I was not okay. Just after I met my friend Joan, we met in Toastmasters in Prescott, and I knew she was in AA because she made no bones about it. Yeah, I got my second epiphany after I asked my husband for a divorce. Joan, and I had about 6 months of not drinking. Joan said to me, she didn't really like my ex-husband. And she said, you don't need to be around him. Well, I have a second bedroom. Why don't you come stay with me? I said, okay. And she said, that's when she said, I go to these meetings, you might want to come. She had no idea about my history, none. And so I move in with her, and one morning we're talking, and it was February 25th. Well, it's coming up on February 25th of 2007. And I said to her, 15 years ago, on February 25th in 1992, was my big quit. That's what I used to call it, my big quit, my first quit. She made the assumption that I had been sober all those years. And she bought me a 15-year chip and gave it to me on February 25th, 2007. Again, I know nothing. I know nothing about continuous sobriety. I've just started going to meetings. And then you guys in that rogues gallery right there, Mark, Greg, George, start talking about this thing called continuous sobriety, including weekends and holidays. And I'm like, oh shit. Now what? Now what do I do? In July of that year, when my year came up, I surrendered my 15-year chip and picked up a 1-year chip, and yeah, don't you know who I am? But it was good. And then I did what I always do, I moved. Yeah, I moved. I've moved so many times prior to getting sober that my sister said that she used to keep a separate address book just for me. Thank you. But then one day I went and looked at how many times I've moved in sobriety. Fuck. And it's kind of almost as many times. Some things don't change so quickly. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Yeah. But I have to tell you, the other thing is, some of you know Janie R. She was my first sponsor, and maybe that's why I moved. No. She said to me when I said I was going to move, she said, if you don't, because I was going to move up to Idaho, if you don't get a sponsor right away, you're going to drink. And I went, no. Defiant. Yeah, no. But I have a problem. I have a distinct problem with sponsors. Yeah. I don't know why. But I did go to Idaho. It did take me a little while, probably 3 or 4 months. But then finally this one woman and her husband walked into the room, this Sunday morning breakfast meeting, and I went, that's her. So she was my sponsor while I lived up in Idaho for about a year. And I still call her on my birthday and say, oh, it's been another year, it's been another year, it's been another year. And she's always so happy to hear from me. Yeah, they've got, God, 40 some odd years now. She and her husband both. But it's this idea that no matter how I want to mess up, the God of my understanding is always there. God of my understanding is always there. Always making it seem like I am just right on time. When I moved, again, angels from Serenity at Sunrise, one named George, helped me move up there, helped me move back, helped me move around town. Mark, you guys had a moving crew at the time. You probably helped a lot of different alcoholics just like me. But I had a community here. I had a community because I went to the same meetings over and over and over for like 10 years. I went to Serenity at Sunrise, I went to Girly Birds, and I went to the Sunday morning AA Al-Anon meeting. And this idea that again, sometimes people think, they look at who I am today, and they think, you have no problem. You have no problem talking to people. I did, and sometimes I still do. This idea that we are a people that don't mix. Yeah, I struggled. You guys, many of you who have heard parts of my story know that when Joan would take me to Serenity at Sunrise, I would go in and immediately sit down and do this. And she would walk around the room and give everybody hugs. Hi, 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 woo, woo, woo. And I'd say, who does that? Because I couldn't possibly do that at that point. And I didn't have to be at work. That meeting's 6:30 to 7:30. I didn't have to be at work until 9. And so I could wash coffee cups afterwards. And I remember when I first would wash coffee cups and people would come in the kitchen and they'd hand me their mug and they'd say, hey, Cindy, how you doing? And I'd look at them and I'd go, how do you know my name? We do that. We do that for each other. We do this together. I can do that today. I can walk into a meeting room and I can make the rounds today because I've hung around. And it's made a difference in my life. I still struggle. I don't know who I want to be when I grow up. You know, I'm still the youngest child somehow, wandering around. I'm still, the other thing that I am is codependent. Okay, and I've had to learn some hard lessons from that. I highly recommend, whether it's to sponsees or to anybody in this room, if you haven't been to Al-Anon, try it out. Hear something, it's a different language, but just go listen. I needed Al-Anon as much as I needed AA. I've gotten better. But it is this idea that is finally, maybe in the last 5 years, has come to me that I truly do need to learn how to take care of myself. I was dependent on this idea somehow that even though I kind of left home and worked and, I still somehow was dependent on this idea that something else, somebody else, something outside of me is going to take care of me. Whether it's, my boss, whether it's somehow my parents, whether it's, my ex-husband, somehow he was going to take care of me for the rest of my life. And somehow I didn't have any sense. No, Cindy, you need to learn how to show up. You need to learn how to take care of you. You need to walk in and learn what it means to be an adult. That has taken me the better part of the number of years that I've been here in these rooms, is to learn what that means. And I need you guys to teach me. A huge part of my sobriety has been watching you guys, asking for help, being able to hear suggestions. Craig's laughing, because I don't always hear well, and I also have a fairly good pushback reflex. You might tell me the right thing, I might hear it, but I'm most likely going to walk away looking like I'm not hearing it. And then maybe 3 or 4 days later, I'll come back around and go, yeah, I think you're right. What else do I need to know? What else do I need to do? Creativity has played a huge part in my recovery. Expression. It's been a huge healing part of my journey. I'm finally learning how to embody that part of me and actually be that part of me and not feel like I need to hide. Because again, I've spent most of my life hiding. Look over here, this is the puppet show. I was thinking this morning, actually, my grandmother bought us puppets one year. And that, I thought, oh, wow, yeah. I think my brother had a boxer. My other brother had like a devil. What did I have? Something, yeah. And see, I can't even remember the puppet that I had. That's the funny part. I've spent so much time looking outward rather than looking inward. This idea that, today I've got you guys. I've got a fantastic sense of relationship with higher power, this God of my understanding. Every morning, thanks to this idea that I do some service work at a treatment center, so I work with a lot of new people. I've gotten in the habit, which is, it's miraculous, of doing 1, 2, and 3 every morning. Third step prayer every morning again. And again, when I look back at who I was when I first got here, first 3 years, and people would say things, and I would be so dismissive. People would say, I hate it when I do this, but this is how I was, and this is how I can still be once in a while. Ask Kathy. People would say, I do the third step prayer every morning. And I'd look at them and go, good for you. And then I went home one day and thought, wow, maybe you should try that. And crossed my arms. And I did. And I spent a few years doing the third step prayer every morning in the mirror. Mirror work, again, this idea that I'm not doing it for anybody else. I need to I need to be able to look myself in the eyes and do this work. I need to be able to honor who the God of my understanding says that I am. You guys have taught me so many things, and I'm just so, so grateful. I turned 65 this year. How did that happen? And I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I still want to do more. I don't want to leave anything undone that the God of my understanding whispers in my ear and says, hey, you know? But the other thing that I do today is I will talk it over with somebody else who has more time than me, usually. Not always. Yeah, I'm excited to help with the roundup this year. I'm excited to have my home group. I'm excited to work with people who are new in recovery. I'm excited to meet with anybody, anytime that I can. I'm excited to be working on a project to offer some more recovery services in town, with a friend who's a whole group of people. I mean, again, this is magic. What we get is magic. That'll pass.